Hello, 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 and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts, typically with a focus on Kempo. As always, I am your host, Reggie Darden, and I am once again excited at a loss for words to have another wonderful guest here, the one and only Christine Bannon-Rodrigues. Uh, there's like I said, at a loss for words. I'm excited to have her on to chat because she's been involved in not only being a great martial artist, been involved with a number of projects that I'm a big fan of. So hopefully we can talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I'm just excited here. How we usually kind of kick things off here. I usually kind of give a little tiny background of my background, and then we get into our guest journey. So I'll just start things off by saying that I train in multiple martial arts at this point. I'm involved in Kempo, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Hapkido, Capoeira, Muay Thai, and I think that's all of them right now. I also have some experience in Taekwondo and did a little bit of boxing. So uh, I stay pretty busy, but um, so that is kind of my little start there. But we're here for the guest, so I will turn it over to our guest here, and yeah, tell us how did the martial arts find you? How did Kempo find you? How did it all start, and where did it all start? And we'll just kind of go from there.
Oh, I would just say, the martial arts. I just got involved with a girlfriend just as another sport, another after school activity. Didn't realize I'd fall in love with it. Just, I had done basketball and softball and figure skating and gymnastics and, tried just about every sport that there was. And I enjoyed them. But when I started with martial arts, like I said, it was just kind of to tag along with her. And, um, I ended up falling in love with it. She probably quit within the first year, and, the rest is history.
Yeah, it's funny to me, and this actually the last guest that I had, this came up, but it's funny to me how many people that I've spoken with that uh, they're known for their martial arts, martial arts life, martial arts career, but yet majority of them, it seems like that was not the thing that they were going to get into. A number of guests have had a similar story to yours, in that their friend, got them involved, and their friend didn't stick with it, but then the person that really wasn't into it, or wasn't their idea, that ended up becoming their life pursuit. And so I always find that interesting and funny that many of those guests are not, that was not their kind of their first choice, or first path. And so that's why I like to say how the martial arts found you versus you finding the martial arts, because uh, doesn't sound like you were looking for it at the start. So
No, not at all.
so now that first school, was it a Kempo school, or what system was that first school?
I started and it was my husband's school, my husband now, um, but it was like a private school. It was in the back of his house in a garage, and he taught, as it wasn't a commercial school. It was, just a private school, and more neighborhood type of people that attended. And then eventually we ended up I opened our first commercial school back in 1985. um so he always had that private school. He was a commercial shell fisherman during the day, and so it, we ended up doing the commercial school because I was competing so much and it was so costly that he said, "Well, you need to help fund this somehow when I was in college and stuff. So, we opened the first commercial school, and, he still ran his school in one area of the town, and I was on the opposite end. And then eventually we ended up merging the 2 schools as they got more successful, and, the rest, we've had a commercial school since then, so it's been great.
Hmm. Gotcha, gotcha. Now, since the martial arts was uh, not something that you were pursuing, what was it that got you hooked in? What did you see or what did you do that got you hooked into it?
I think it was more being a individual type of thing where you progressed according to how much you put into it, how much attendance, how much you practiced. As far as competition goes, at that time it was more individual, it wasn't like a team competition. So, as being a mediocre player, average, I didn't feel like, that pressure of being on a basketball team and not making the shot or, in softball or, you weren't spending any time on the bench. You're 100% participating. And, I wasn't letting down the rest of the team if I made a error or, didn't get a home run or something, so, um, I think I enjoyed that part being more individualized. And then, when I got into the competition part, I think I started competing like as an orange belt, so I did start competing early, but when I got into the black belt divisions, I really became, obsessive with it because it was, seeing your name in Black Belt magazine and, not Black Belt Karate Illustrated for the ratings and being in the top 10 in New England and, just trying to climb that ladder and being able to see my name in print and how I'm progressing and getting higher in the rankings and stuff. So I became, wanting to be number 1 in New England, and then it was in the country, and then it was, moving on to the world. So it was fun climbing up that ladder and going through the baby steps, more of a local thing and then national and then international.
Gotcha. Now, were you instantly drawn to the competing side of it, or did you had to warm up to it? So for me, I was never particularly interested in competing. I was in about a handful of tournaments, and believe I got disqualified in every one. So uh, competing was not really my forte or something I was particularly interested in. But was that something that you were instantly drawn to, or?
No, not really. When I first competed, like I said, I was an orange belt, and back then, even though I was only 13 or 14, I was, the same size I am now. So, the rules were a little different. So my instructor said, as far as going in with the juniors, which would have been 13-year-old boys, and some of those boys at 13, reached their growth spurt and they're like 6 foot, and some of them haven't yet, and that they were closer to my size. So for forms or weapons, I did go in the junior division against the boys, but then when it came to fighting, he felt that I would do better off in the women's division. So it didn't matter that I was under 18 back then, they didn't have any rules like that. So I entered the women's division, but back then it was white to black belt. So, of course, I ended up having a fight. Larry Kelly's wife, who's a Larry Kelly, may rest in peace, but he was a great fighter, um, back in the day. And, I ended up having to fight his wife, who was a black belt at the time. So it was, you know, I didn't, I didn't warm up to the competition early on like that, but I did it because the school competed and my instructor wanted us to go, and it wasn't like tons of tournaments throughout the year. It was, a handful, and I would go and compete and, do decent. And like I said, I don't think the competition part really excited me until I was around brown belt level, brown and black, and and that's when I really, really got into the competition part, but I was more interested in, learning and achieving my black belt at some point and, um, just improving and progressing, so the competition part was more later on in my, higher ranks.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, was there like a aha moment when with the competing, or was there like
Oh,
a moment or a competition or something you did and it was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do, or is it more
um,
gradual?
I think it was more gradual and, you know, when got into the black belt division, I was competing against the men an awful lot. And, when judges are judging according to power and focus and speed, of course, some of those guys are going to be, show more power because they're just bigger and stronger. Um, so the competition back then was, more traditional. It wasn't, you didn't see too many creative routines. That was kind of, just starting. And so my husband said, well, he was my husband at the time, but my instructor at the time, um, had told me, "Well, you should use your assets, the things that you do well. We should try to capitalize on those, and your flexibility and different agility." So he suggested that I maybe start training in wushu, just because as a traditional art, you still had, like, butterfly kicks and aerial cartwheels and jump kicks landing into splits and different things like that, so he felt that that would be more of a stronger point for me and make it better for me to be competing against the men so that, I could use those, different things I did well. So, I started training in wushu, and so instead of going out and doing hard style forms, I was going out and doing the soft style forms or soft style weapons and stuff. And, that was a new journey. So I, been training in the wushu since right after earning my black belt, started doing that. And, it gives you a total different style, soft style versus hard style. So, I do both of those as well.
Hmm. And so, just to be clear, what all systems have you trained in at this point?
Well, the system that we teach and that I've been brought up in is Okiru Kempo. Um, so that style of Kempo, it's like an open system my husband created because he trained with Professor Nick Serio and George Pizzari, and also was certified in under, Ed Parker, Master Ed Parker. So, 3 different styles of Kempo, so he kinda created his own system between the 3 styles that he trained under. So we don't really teach Serio Kempo, we do, some of the Parker material usually after black belt. Um so I train in the Okiru Kempo system, but I also train with Wushu and I teach kickboxing as well, and I teach Krav Maga as well.
Okay, very nice, very nice, very nice. Now, with getting into the wushu, uh, was it a difficult transition? So, uh, I when I talk to people that have been in multiple styles, I in my own journey, I started in one form of kempo, and now I do a different one, and I had I guess I still struggle with it as well. The kind of you learn certain habits and things like that, and so transitioning from one to the other has been kind of difficult. So when you started getting into the wushu, was there a difficult transition to go between the systems, or?
It was in some regards because you so used to putting, as much power into every technique where the wushu is very fluid, and on those endpoints, you really snap out that power, but you're getting the power through the speed and the um, the speed and the agility of the motions just, um, that part was pretty hard for me to just try to be as quickly as do the moves as fluid and as quick as I could rather than, you know, um, emphasizing every ounce of power into every single technique. So that part was a little tough, but, once I got the knack of it, it became, something I really enjoyed doing, especially the weapons because the weapons are so different than hardstyle weapons, where we have the bow and the nunchucks and the sword, more of like the samurai type of sword training where in wushu it's broadswords and they'll do the double broadswords or double hook swords, the three sectional staff, the spear, the bow's completely different than the karate type of bow. And, so I enjoyed that and I always like to try to come out with some kind of weapon routine that was different. A lot of times you go to a tournament and you have like 19 people doing the bow and maybe three doing the sword or something or kamas or something. But so I always like to try to be different and do something that not everybody is out there doing, so I did, double broadswords, and then I competed with, double hook swords, and then, um, my last weapon that I really, really enjoyed doing was the broadsword and the whip chain together, which was pretty unique because you had a short range weapon as the sword and a long range weapon with the whip chain. So, it took a lot of coordination and stuff, it took a lot of training to get that routine down and a lot of clunks in the shins and the head with the whip chain and different things, but, that was one of my favorite routines.
Oh, very nice. I can I can totally imagine. I can't really imagine being able to do both of those at the same time. I've clipped my wrist enough just playing with a karambit, and we won't talk about my times trying to use a nunchuck. So, um, yeah, that's that. Just thinking of just the chain whip by itself, I would think that that's just beyond difficult on its own. So to try and wield that with something else is pretty mind blowing to me. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely unique and exciting on that. So I like that. I like that. Now, coming up in the competing, since they're well, let's see. Coming up in the competing, were there who were kind of people that you were maybe looking up to, or was there any, or were you just kind of I'm just gonna forge my own path and
Well, I did, look up to certain competitors, loved, watching people like Jean Fournette do his, forms and Keith Hirabayashi or Keith Cook now, um, with the, forms, and then in fighting, of course, there were fighters out there like Nasty Anderson and Billy Blanks and Kevin Thompson, and, um, I'd read about and see on the covers of magazine Linda Denley or Arlene Lemus, and then I end up, you know, when I started competing nationally in the same rings with these competitors, so it was kinda being kinda awestruck when I'd see them and putting their gear on and them being right next to me, and then eventually I end up, having to match up with them, so that was, kinda cool, and, as far as, the women fighters back then, I'd usually as I got better, I would be winning the lightweight division, and then I would have to fight at the beginning, it was, like, always either Arlene or Linda for grand champion, because either one of them, were the dominant forces in the heavier weight division, and so I'd usually end up having to fight them, and they were both very, very tough competitors, and then Arlene ended up going into the Olympic style for Taekwondo, so we didn't see her out as much, and then, you know as I got better and better and closer to beating Linda, our scores would get closer and closer, and then she had retired. And then I kinda took over at that point and was the one that was winning all the grand championships all the time. So, um, you know, a lot of times it was always a heavyweight that was winning, and then when I came out and started winning, you know, kinda opened people's eyes that a lightweight could actually win the fighting grands.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. So let's transition over to the teaching side of it. When did you get started with the teaching part of it, and was that something that you were always interested in getting into, or like many guests, were you just kind of thrown into it? And
Yeah, well, like I said, I was competing all over the country, and it was getting to be very, costly, so, besides going to college, school, I had opened that commercial school, and, I really enjoyed the teaching. Didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. You just see people that are whether they're kids that are either you have both sides of the spectrum. You get some that are afraid of their own shadow and super shy and, have 0 confidence, and then you have some that, are really teetering on the edge of hanging out with the wrong type of people and getting involved into the wrong type of things, whether it's drugs or, different things, and so you kinda bring those 2 opposite ends of the spectrum and bring them to the center, and balance them out and get them going in the right direction and building that kid's confidence up, and, you see such dramatic improvement with them, and then with the kids that were kind of probably heading down the wrong path, getting them to get their life back together and focused on what they should be doing and, being good people and stuff, so I really enjoy that, and then you have the adults that, you have all different types that certain ones that really just need to lose some weight and get in shape, and other ones that have, whether it's a situation that they were in is needing to know how to defend themselves, and they wish they had known it prior, or just people wanting to just know how to protect themselves and their family, um, and then people just wanting to earn that black belt and, become an instructor or just do something in the martial arts or become future world champions themselves. So, everyone has a different goal, but I really enjoyed teaching and trying to help them reach those goals, and it's great when after being in the martial arts and teaching for so many years when people come back and they're like, you know, they have their own kids now and they're bringing their kids to train because they want them to have that same experience and guidance. Or they could just come back and say, they just got their doctorate, their PhD and can't thank us enough for guiding them and setting that mentality that they could achieve anything that they want to if they set their mind to it. So, it's just rewarding to see those things and people coming back to you years down the road.
what would you say is maybe some things that would be necessary to build a good instructor? Or,
Um, a lot of times, even when I look in my own school, there's people that are super talented and can do, unbelievable technique, um, and huge skills, but they're not always the best instructors. Sometimes it's the person that might not be able to do it as well, but they can get the point across to the student, and they can really focus on what their goals are and try to help them achieve it. So, sometimes it's not the most talented that makes the best instructor.
gotcha. Yeah, I remember hearing a story, and unfortunately, I'm blanking on which guest mentioned this, but they mentioned the great Frank Trejo, and he was teaching them. I believe it was Form 4, and um, he was doing this while he was, in a wheelchair. Had a number of health difficulties, but he was able to teach long form 4, and all from the wheelchair. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely the sign of a someone that understands the material and can teach it well,
Right.
despite not being able to do it themselves at that point. So yeah, that's definitely important. I think a lot of people, when they get to their black belt, or even uh, not even a black belt, but an advanced rank, they kind of automatically assume that they're able to teach and get that point across, get that information across effectively and clearly. And it's not always the case. So.
Right.
Like that. So, so on the kind of other side of that, what kind of things would you say make a great student, or how do you mold a good student?
Well, I think a good student is someone who practices what you tell them to do. Practice makes perfect, and someone who's dedicated and puts the time aside to train, and come to classes. And there's a lot of people that can learn very, very quickly, and a lot of times they feel like they should be zipping through belts and don't have to put in as much effort. But you have to teach the individuals. So sometimes I have two students with equal ability, but one person came in and they didn't know their right foot from their left, and they were the most uncoordinated person, and couldn't kick above the knee. And now these two students are kind of equal, but that other student kind of came in the same way that they are right now, so they didn't really improve. So you want to look at a student and remember where they came from and what kind of progress they made, because everybody's different. And you do have those students that have natural ability and they don't put a lot of effort into it. And you have to look at that, and again, you know, repetition and muscle memory. If I can learn a technique and do it really well, but I don't rep it out and don't make it where it's muscle memory, and someone grabs me and does something to me, and while your adrenaline is crazy and you have 0 time to think and it's just react, those reactions aren't gonna be there if you're not creating that muscle memory by doing it so many times.
Gotcha. I like it. I like it. All right. So now we're going to move into the entertainment side. So, been fortunate to have had a chance to chat with a number of folks that are in the biz, and you are get added to this list. So. Um, so I'm of course curious about WMAC Masters. You had a nice role on that show, and I know I was always tuning in every week to see you do your thing. So how did that come about?
Well, WMAC Masters was actually, the second time I had worked in front of a, camera and did film work and stunt work. My first time was actually the next Karate Kid movie, where I doubled for Hilary Swank. Um, that was the first time I ever, and it wasn't something that I had as a goal or a dream to be behind the camera, to be in front of the camera and doing stunt work or acting or anything like that. Um, Pat Johnson, who was, he stunt coordinated and directed or um, was the fight coordinator for so many big movies, including like all the Ninja Turtle movies, all the Karate Kid movies, um, Batman and Robin. He worked on the WMAC Masters. So he was filming the next Karate Kid with which was not Ralph Macchio this time, it was Hilary Swank, and they were filming in Boston. So Boston is I'm from Rhode Island, so it's really like an hour away, and they were filming, and I knew Pat Johnson, met him at many tournaments, and we were good friends. I never said anything to him like, "Oh, if you ever need, a female stunt woman, let me know." I never had that conversation with him at all. We were just very good friends and met through tournaments. He would go out and kind of scout people out at different tournaments and support. As a martial artist, he enjoyed going to the tournaments and supporting his friends that were promoting the events. So one day he just called me and he asked me if I'd be interested in going on set and meeting Hillary and seeing how we sized up together and stuff. And he had a stunt woman that did all the other type of stunts. There was a stunt where a pizza delivery guy almost hits her, and she does a stunt and a ladder stunt and some different things that she did, the stunt woman. But he said when it came to the fighting part, which is what the movie is all about, he said, I don't want to have someone who has some martial arts training out. I want to have the best female that I could find, to do that stunt scene. So he asked me if I would be interested. So I took a ride to Boston with my husband, and we met everybody, the director and Hillary, and we were pretty close in size. And from that point, he said, "Oh, well, if you want the job, I'd like you to come and film a few days for this main fight scene." So I thought it was extremely cool. I felt like I was a weight belt again because, I had to learn the lingo on set and when I'm supposed to do my stuff. And, as far as uh, being a very shy person, if I was thrown out there to say lines and stuff, I probably would have been extremely stressed and nervous. But, telling me to kick certain things or at certain marks and stuff. I mean, I had extreme confidence that whatever they were gonna ask me to do, I was fine doing, and it wasn't gonna be too complicated. So it was a lot of fun, but that was my first job. And then after that, I got into the union, of course, and I said, "Oh," I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to pursue it and do more. And then the WMAC TV series came up, and it was a very unique show because they actually took champions from all different categories. You had Herb Perez, who was an Olympic gold medalist. You had myself, who was a NASCA Sport Karate world champion. Um, you had Richard Brandon and Larry Lamb and Carmichael Simon and Hakeem Alston and um, Bridget Riley, who was a boxing champion. And so you just had all these true martial art champions all together to make this TV show. And I really enjoyed the show because we were just like in the karate school, you're trying to teach life lessons, and the show tried to teach that, whether it was about discipline or sincerity or any of those different things that the show would try to teach each week. And it was, a half-hour episode, so it was really condensed into, some high action with the fights, but then with the dialogue and different things that they were trying to teach through the show. I thought it was a great show, and unfortunately, it only went 2 seasons, and we did not get a 3rd season, but, Carmichael Simon is working hard at trying to bring that back, and, hopefully, we'll see it come back out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that show, and it was just always a pleasure to watch. And yeah, I excited to kind of see some of the things with it kind of coming back. I actually uh, do have did and do have plans. There's a gentleman that wrote a book about WMAC Masters, and he was kind of a big force in kind of getting it revived. So I'm definitely gonna have a chat with him.
Was that Chris
Chris.
Landis?
Yes, yes,
I forget how
yes,
to say the last
yes,
name, but
yes,
yes.
yes, yes, yes. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see some of those things coming back. They're starting to pop up in my social feeds, different things. So that's been pretty exciting. But yeah, I always enjoyed that show because like you mentioned, it has those good wholesome values, good kind of martial arts, uh, uh, Mr. Miyagi kind of good principles, and kind of reinforce those instead of just being about, oh well, this person's fighting this person and they're gonna take them out and beat them up, and it's like, no, the martial arts is there's more to it than that sort of thing. So I always enjoyed that aspect of it. So
Yes.
I didn't realize that the Karate Kid was before WMAC Masters. So thank you for clearing that up. Uh, when did the Batman and Robin uh, thing come up?
That was, I remember filming WMAC Masters in Florida. We were always at, Universal Studios down there, and Pat Johnson again had told me that they were looking for someone to double. Um, and so when I thought about it, I was like, I wasn't working on a weekend or a certain day, so I ended up flying from Orlando to California, and you know, that was quite the experience. So it was kind of like I would say near the end of the second season. Um, Alicia Silverstone is the one that I had doubled and worked with Cheryl Wheeler on the film, and she doubled for Uma, and it was just a great experience. It was just such a high budget movie, and it was you had Arnold Schwarzenegger on there, you had um, just some great actors and actresses, and I remember going for my fitting for that bat suit or whatever you wanna call it, and, the person that they took me to go see, like, handmade, custom made, like, all of Michael Jackson's outfits back in the day and, just, all these top celebrities, and I mean, the leather boots, I mean, everything was just completely fitted to my body, so it was although it was heavy and cumbersome, at least it fit perfect, and, it was just a really cool thing to do, and we filmed that I wanna say it was, like, December time because I remember having to come home, and I was felt like I was really rushing to get things ready for Christmas, being away and stuff, and, um, right after Batman and Robin, I was supposed to go to, uh, Thailand and work on Mortal Kombat, and I was supposed to double over there and be there for 3 months. And that was gonna be, like, the very, very beginning in January that I was going, and, um, I went to the travel clinic to get my shots to, the malaria because we were gonna be basically, like, in the jungle, filming, so I had to get malaria shots and pills and, all the other required travel things. So when I went to the travel clinic here in Rhode Island, they ask you a question that they always ask women, "Any chance of being pregnant?" And I was like, "Well, I guess there's always a chance." I don't know. I can't say 100% I'm not. So they said, "Oh, we can't give you any of this stuff unless we do a pregnancy test and make sure that you're not pregnant." So, I did a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant with my first son. So
Oh.
so so technically, I always tell him, that's why he probably is into the stunts and everything as well, because he was in my stomach when I was doing Batman and Robin, and I had no idea. So,
Oh, very nice, very nice.
yeah. but unfortunately, I had to cancel that trip because there was no way I was gonna, you know, risk, doing any kind of stunts, being pregnant or being out of the country in that type of, location. So I had to call Pat Johnson and give him, like, you know he probably had, like, a week notice to get someone to take my spot. So it was, he was very happy for me, but he said on the other end, he's like, "I'm very sad for me because I don't know what I'm gonna do now." So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to work on, the Mortal Kombat movie, but I did work on the Mortal Kombat TV show, had doubled on one of the episodes, double for Katana, so he that was here in the States, in Florida as well. So and that was after I had my son, so that was kinda cool too.
Very nice. Yeah, another show that I very religiously tuned into every week, and so now I need to make sure to to watch out for you on my next rewatch. Uh, always enjoyed that show, and the fight scenes on there were really done well, and a lot of the great artists contributed to that. So
Yes.
very nice. Just to kind of satisfy my curiosity, did you happen to know what role you were going to have in Mortal Kombat?
I believe it was doubling, the Katana character.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, right on, right on, right on. I like it. I like it. So since you got to be a real life superhero, did you get the bug at all? The Hollywood bug catch you at all? Did you want to be in more things, or have a
Yeah,
aspiration to follow that?
yeah, I did, and, I kind of, I wanted to do more stunt work and get involved with more films, but I wasn't I really enjoyed the martial arts and teaching and I had a family now, and so it was not something I was willing to, like, move out to California and be going to auditions every other day and really banging down the doors for that. I figured, yeah, I had gotten the work I had gotten because of who being a world champion martial artist and, them wanting that particular skill level. So, and more and more work was coming to the East Coast, whether it was in New York, Boston, even Rhode Island. So, I kept my name out there and would do some work on different films that were local. Or if they wanted me to travel, I would, but I wasn't going all over the place trying to audition for different films. So, and I still do some stunt work today, and uh, it's just not something that it's not what's gonna put food on my table, and I'm not doing it that much. So, but I did do work on, oh god, what was, um, Underdog, did some stunts on that and, not martial arts at all, but some stunts on that, and then, I was in 27 Dresses as one of the bridesmaids, and and then I did, oh god, Salem's Lot recently, Mother Android, so some of those movies were filmed over here in Boston or Rhode Island, so it's kinda cool when you can, just get up in the morning and go to work rather than fly across the country and be away from your school and your family for a long period of time.
Exactly. So besides Mortal Kombat, was there anything that you were up for that you didn't get that you wish you would have got to be in?
Um, Gee, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different shows that, I'm sure I would've loved to have been on, but, nothing that I went and, like, auditioned and then didn't got turned down or anything like that. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of, great action films and stuff. I mean, like, Kill Bill and there's some really good female stunt roles or action stars out there that were some great movies. So, but nothing that I was, really had my hopes on and didn't end up getting, no.
Okay. All right. Very, very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I guess the other question. So one of my previous guests was Karen Shepard, and
Uh-huh.
she had mentioned that she when she got involved into the stunt work, that she also got to get involved with some of the other kind of stunt sides, not just the fighting, but the high falls and the driving and things like that. So did you get into any of that, or was it just primarily martial arts?
Mostly martial arts, but like I said, like Underdog, and Salem's Lot and some of those other movies were not really fight scenes. They were just doing, regular stunts, whether it was falling or um getting pushed around, or I did some driving in Underdog. They have the dog flying through the street and so you had to have stunt people doing the driving, not extras, for different things. But nothing like, doing a high fall off a super high building or anything like that, but, a lot of different stunts that I've done.
Mhm. Good deal. Good deal. All right, so we are going to move into our lightning round here. I got a few questions as we head towards wrapping up here. First question being, do you have a favorite technique?
Probably the sidekick. The sidekick's always been my bread and butter, and I think it really stemmed from back in the day when I was always fighting big guys. Um, where I use that more like a jab or whatever, but the sidekick would keep a 200 and something pound guy away from me. Like, if they're wanting to punch me in the head or something, like that sidekick could always keep that barrier and keep that opponent away from me.
Very nice. Yeah, that just reminded me of a video I saw not too long ago, and it was like a Muay Thai fight, and there was this lady that was she was just rattling off those kicks like it was nothing, and they were like all head kicks, and it was pretty impressive, and the lady that she was fighting just couldn't even get close, couldn't get anything uh, rattled off other than just getting kicked in the head constantly. So, uh, yeah, it's a great weapon when you can use it well. So I like that.
Yep.
All right. Next question: do you have a favorite form and/or set?
Uh, Probably that whip chain and broadsword routine I used to do, the wushu form. That was probably my favorite, because it was took a long time to master it, and it had a lot of diversity to it because of the long range and the short range weapon combined.
Very nice. All right, and so that kind of leads into the next question. Uh, you have a favorite weapon?
Yeah, that would be my favorite weapon, the broadsword with the whip chain.
Very nice. I like it. I like it. All right. Next question. If there is anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non fictional, besides Ed Parker, who would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Hmm. Well, I've always admired Mike Stone, and we've actually had him in for a few seminars at our school years and years ago, and I think it'd probably be pretty cool to train with him or Chuck Norris, that I again know him personally as well, and but never did any martial arts with him. Just those two would be pretty cool.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm jealous. I want to want to hang out with Mr. Norris for sure. We'll both definitely would want to hang out with both of them. But so
Yes.
very nice, very nice. All right. Last question there. What is something or someone that always inspires you to train? So I usually frame this with for me, when I watch Rocky Four and they have the training montage of him in the snow, chopping the wood and lifting the rocks and all that stuff like that. Anytime I see that, I'm ready to get out there and hit the mats, and that always fires me up. So, what is something like that for you?
Um, you know, I think when I see certain people that are older than me, some of the masters out there, and I see, you know, how much what their knowledge is, and the ones that are still training and still trying to learn more. It definitely, I'll go to a seminar and learn something, or you know, work with someone and learn something, and I'm like, there's just so much still to learn in the martial arts. Not only just in your style, but outside of your style, and that excites me when I learn new things, and I'm like, God, I've been doing this for 45 years and I can still learn, different moves that I just didn't know existed before, So that really motivates me to just keep going because it doesn't become boring when you're learning more things.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Uh, there's always something new to learn. Just in one style, let alone all the different styles that are out there. So, yeah, we're always a student. Always something new to gain. So that's I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So our final thing here before we close out here is now it's time for shameless self promotion. So you can plug anything you want, or if there's anything that you wanted to get out there that maybe we didn't cover today. Now's your chance, and we'll go from there.
Well, m my husband and I promote the Ocean State Grand National Karate Championships, which is it's one of the 12 tournaments on the national tour for NASCAR. So they have 12 tournaments throughout the North America. Some are in Canada, some are in the United States. So we are one of the 12 tournaments, and that runs in April every year. This year will be April 10th to the 12th. I shouldn't say this year. Next year, 2026, and, it's a great event. Um, it people look at it as being, a big international event, but, there's still divisions for beginners and 5 and 6-year-olds, and, it's not, world class when you're in the in the white belt and beginner divisions, and we do 7-foot trophies for all the underbelts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's great competition. It's a 3-day event, and, that's probably one of the biggest things I'd wanna promote, and I'm also, November 15th, I am doing, at the Martial Art Museum out in California. They they do, a few people every year where you know, it's gonna be a Christine Bannon-Rodrigues day,
Oh,
at the
nice.
Martial Art Museum, so I'll be out there, and they're gonna show, some clips of, either sci-fi movie or WMC Master or something I was in. They're gonna show some stuff like that, and just, have a meet and greet, and, hanging out, and just, it's supposed to be a big event there on November 15th. I would probably be there on the day before and the day after at the museum a little bit as well, but that's something I'm looking forward to being out there.
Very exciting. Very exciting. I like it. I like it. All right. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to be on with me and sharing your story. I'm excited for all the things that you've done and are continuing to do. And yeah, I can't wait to get this out for my listeners to hear. And once again, just thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to My Empty Hands. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. If you didn't enjoy it, please share it with an enemy. If you'd like to be a guest, or if you would like to recommend a guest for the show, please email me at podcast@talkingkempo.com. Thank you.